glad you have started. I'm glad, the
GPRTU.
boss is here himself, Accra boss, that it should start. We can't live by money, money, money. We are too price oriented in this country. And it's as though the price determines everything we do. So you set the price and then sort of fit everything in there. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Our safety should matter from now onwards. There are too many people, and Daniel, I'm saying that these buses, most of them were not designed for carrying passengers. Somebody said the space between yourself and the seat in front is too small. The seats have been molded with, sometimes the metal being exposed, and you're all cramped in there because the car owner wants 100 CDs at the end of the month, at the end of the day. I mean, that can't be fair to be, to ask of any citizen that go through this, because at the end of the day, Mr. Amankwa wants his sales. I think leadership should stand up from now and use this as an advantage. I mean, we're closing borders, stopping planes from coming from other countries.
Drastic measures.
Drastic measures. So now that the momentum is there, I think they should do it.
Okay. Mr. Sabat, this question of the number, how we remodel the cars, we cut windows into buses and we put in extra seats there, how did it even come about? I mean, how did we even come to the point where this is how trotros are made, and that's how we're going to do it?
Well, the fact remains that most of the vehicles that comes in, were designed to carry goods. But when it arrives in this country, then we convert it to run passenger, services. Before you do that, there is a portion in the road traffic regulations. I don't have it here, so I cannot quote. You have to go to the licensing office, the DVLA, for them to assess it before you are registered to carry, fare-paying passengers. And most of the vehicles that you see, the owners went to the DVLA, and they were given the green light to run commercial services.
So it's back to the regulator for you.
Yes, you see, they make it work. Granted that anybody goes there and they've been denied the right to operate. Yes, those people accept it like that. But once you get there and it's approved that you have the right, the authority to use it for commercial purposes by carrying passengers, you don't have any option than to go by what you have been assigned to do with the vehicle.
So from what I'm hearing, Kojo, political will still has a role to play in this, because these things are allowed.
Absolutely, and you've nailed it. It all boils down to political will. At this point, you can tell that there is a reluctance on the part of authority. And when I say authority, I don't mean only government, but leadership at all levels. There is a reluctance on the part of authority to take decisions that will inconvenience the masses they manage, or the masses they are responsible for. And we are still prioritizing convenience over life. It's because we haven't yet grasped the reality of our situation. So, for example, to the GPRTU, an organization that is responsible for its members, and there are thousands of members across the country, they are thinking about convenience over life. But let me ask this question. If tomorrow the president announces that due to a decision to keep this nation safe before things get bad, he's going to announce a mandatory self-quarantine of all Ghanaians, who will GPRTU transport? Who will come and sit in a row in their trotros? Who? So sometimes when you are prioritizing convenience over life, you need to understand that no situation is permanent. The situation around the world is evolving fast. Yesterday, in a space of 24 hours, 475 people died in Italy. where people certainly do not sit four in a row in Trotros. 475 people. So we have to understand that our situation is evolving fast. Overnight, we are hearing that 2 more people have tested positive. These are the people we are testing. For those we are not testing, who are not showing any visible symptoms, walking around, touching people, sitting next to people in Trotros, for those people, how many are spreading the virus as we speak? How many will we record tomorrow? How many will we record the day after that? Social distancing, I'm sorry to say, the world has now changed. Social distancing is no longer a short-term solution. It is a long-term reality. So after 4 weeks from now, does anybody really imagine that Ghana will look around and say that, oh, we have eradicated coronavirus, so we can now go back to meeting in large groups and doing things the way we used to? Does anybody really think that is what will happen 4 weeks from today?
So it's not just even about the transportation, Winston, but on that matter, that difficulty to enforce, really, it's become so easy to do it for the airlines, at the ports. They are losing so much revenue because of this. But when it comes to the cars, listen to how the transport minister spoke yesterday before we go ahead.
One, we need to adopt the Ministry of Health directive of continual washing of hands of various bus terminals. Commercial operators or the transport operators need to provide adequate running water with soap. And how do you call it? What bucket? He said Veronica bucket. They have to put the water in it to make sure that it's soap for them to wash their hands. Provide sanitizers at their loading terminals for use by their drivers and passengers. Correct information on passengers boarding buses at various lorry terminals. This one will enable us to trace. But if there's a need for her to do some tracing, it will be simpler for her to do that. Provide sanitizers in their vehicles and ensure their usages by the drivers and passengers. Open the windows of air-conditioned buses to allow for natural air circulation at all times. Wash the external and internal part of their vehicle thoroughly with soap, detergent before loading. Spray inside the vehicle with Ministry of Health approved spraying materials before and after every journey. Avoid overloading standing passengers, and as much as possible, try and see if we can maintain the social distance measures that we are putting in place.
So Winston, he says, as much as possible, try and see if we can apply the social distancing measures.
So that's where it starts from. You're expecting the transport minister to, probably say we have engaged with them and we've urged them to practice the social distancing. But he says, try as much as possible if you can implement social distancing. And you've heard from Robert Saba. It's not something that looks like they are going to implement, because they've already started by telling you we're going to make losses. And I agree with Kojo when he says we need to prioritize life over convenience and also over the profits that we make. Because, look, if we're to make all that money and fell ill and had to spend that money in treating ourselves, what would we have done? But let me make a point about the transport minister's, directives. It's so simple when it comes to the airlines, for instance, because as they come into the country, you could just say, you know what, you're coming from this particular country, you're not supposed to come in from this country, so you're not permitted here. In fact, even before you come, you would have been denied entry anyway. So if you defy all of that and get into our space, then we'll tell you, you can't come in again. One of the things we do so well in this country, and I like that all the time, because you see, we're talking about 3 in a row when it comes to Trotro. That is actually the case. And I remember that very well when that directive was given. More than 10 years ago, we said, make it 3 in a row. So it's been there for a very long time. But go to the Trotro stations and you see people sitting in 4s. So that brings me to one thing we don't do so well about in this country, enforcement. Now, Robert Saba is here. GPRTU, they're supposed, and I mean, when you are in a group, there's supposed to be positive peer pressure to ensure that the right things are done. what have they put in place, even as GPIT, to ensure that all the directives, because they would have sat in a meeting with the minister to agree on all of these things, didn't you?
Yeah.
Great. So when you agreed on all these directives, what measures did you put in place to ensure the enforcement? Starting from one, the GPIT.
Well, you see, the officials cannot be everywhere. Not until we receive information from maybe the general public, we have difficulty of knowing what is actually happening on the field. Or we receive information from, our membership. We have that difficulty. Yes, we met with the minister. The issue of spacing came up, but like I said earlier on, we were not able to find solution to the spacing because of what we said, that we'll be losing revenue. If there should be high-powered directives which will go down to the car owners, I think we have...
But he talks about, for instance, making sure that whenever you load, before you load, you disinfect the vehicle. So you wash the vehicle and everything with soap, detergents, and other...
Provide hand sanitizers.
Hand sanitizers approved by the Ministry of Health, for instance. That is something that you, as persons, the unions who are the loading centers, can at least help enforce, can't you?
We started practicing this right from this very Monday. We started. We've told our members that because of this coronavirus, they should ensure to have these Veronica buckets at the station, soap, and sanitizers. Drivers will have them in the vehicles. In case a passenger comes and that passenger do not possess this sanitizer, they must help the passenger with whatever they have, you see, and make sure that the vehicles are washed, disinfect most period. By the end of the day, they do that. The handles of the vehicle should also be sanitized, you see. So we put all these things in place.
Okay.
When you get to 37, it is there. Go to New Plan and some other stations.
Mr. Saba, enforcement is easy when people understand why they must do something. Do you have a feeling that your people understand why this is important? Because you see, your national chairman doesn't seem to understand. He's talking about the fact that you are doing business and can't run at a loss. He's talking about how you can't reduce passengers on vehicles simply because of the outbreak of coronavirus. I'm quoting him, simply because of the outbreak of coronavirus. That's your national chairman. He doesn't seem to understand that even after I wash my hands and come and sit on your trotro, if I'm sitting next to an infected person who coughs and I breathe, it doesn't matter that I wash my hands. It doesn't matter that you gave me hand sanitizer. I will still get sick. He doesn't seem to understand that. So how are you sure that your people who are supposed to carry out these directives understand?
Well, you see, they are also at risk. The driver is also at risk. He sat in the vehicle right from morning till evening. A passenger may come, to sit in your vehicle, and you may not see him for the next 2 weeks, 1 month. But as for the driver, it's always, a risk. He drives maybe over 8 hours in a day. And the more he carries the passengers, the more, the danger of, contracting this virus is there. So they are serious about it for their health. A driver was interviewed yesterday in one of, the stations, and he confirmed that he has, this hand sanitizer on him. He doesn't joke with it. The directives that the GPRTU has given is following it to the letter. And I believe that most of the people are doing. Unlike maybe the previous, directives, they are not directly affected. That is why they renege on, ensuring that it works. But this time around, because of, whether they will survive or die, is what they are thinking of.
You know what? Let's turn the conversation to our listeners now. I want to know from you. Did you take a trotro this morning? Did you pass by a trotro this morning? Did you see any of the directive being followed? The directives, I mean, being followed. Did you see people using hand sanitizer? Did you use hand sanitizer yourself when you were entering this vehicle? Did you see a Veronica basket at the station? And did you see any form of social distancing? 0302 216 541 0302 216 541. What's your experience this morning? You've heard from Mr. Saba at the of the GPRTU, Nana, Winston, and Kojo. What's your experience? Are you satisfied with the responses of Mr. Saba and the Transport Minister? What should be done? Call us now, 0302 216 541 0302 216 541. Before my first caller comes in, though, it's time to make banking easy with Absa Digital. I'll tell you more about that. Shandoff from Nungwabari has joined us. Good morning, Shandoff.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Dazi.
Yes, Shandoff, tell us, what's your experience been?
Yeah, last night I have to drive to Tema, right? But I decided to park at the junction mall and just experience traffic. On my way back, I experienced this, right? We picked the Chinese guy right at the Community 3 terminal, the harbor. Yeah. In fact, the way Ghanaians are trying to take this to they should be educated, right? They have to bully this guy. Actually, there's a lady sitting right behind this guy who even slapped this Chinese guy. Oh. So he decided to drop on his way, though he hasn't gotten to his destination, but I think because of the slap he dropped. So please, I want you to pass this information to the GPRT chairman to educate the drivers, to educate the passengers on board.
Shandoff, thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. Shandoff sat in a car in a trotro to Junction Mall, and unfortunately, he saw what's the beginning of xenophobia being carried out against a Chinese person. Very, very unfortunate. David is on the line from Kumasi. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Evans. Sorry, Daniel.
Yes, David, let's go ahead. What's your experience been in a trotro?
Okay, so, as we're talking about taking precaution in this situation, I picked a trotro from Kumasi to Ofinso this morning, and my experience, as for the spacing or the number of people that buses will pick, it's still the same. Nothing has changed about that. And then you see this mate wearing gloves on his right hand. And I was like, what are you preventing? You're not preventing anything. You see, it's about time we take certain things before it gets out of hand. And then the use of nose masks, I don't know. This morning, someone was saying it's even more risky to use it when you don't have it or when you're not coughing. But then let's ask ourselves now, in case I don't use it and I sit in a car and one sitting next to me has it, there's a possibility that I'm going to contract it from the person. So I think we should get that one too clear. But I have just one question for NDTD. Somewhere last year in Kumasi, I don't know of Accra, they took the operation on this Kia Preview. It used to be 4-seater and the 4-seater and it has been reduced to 3-seater. All Kia Preview that you see in Kumasi has been reduced. And I know the commander then made a clear point that from Preview, they are going to the Sprinter buses. Because you see a Sprinter bus that is supposed to be 4-seater and it's 5-seater. Okay. The one that is supposed to be 5-seater is 6-seater. And nothing has been done about that. You see, if we don't take steps to ensure that we keep this situation, it will get out of hand and there is nothing that we can do about it.
David, very interesting concerns. Thank you very much for sharing them. But a quick one on the nose masks. Yes, so you can wear a nose mask if you are sitting by someone who is infected. But if your hands are contaminated in any way and you still touch your face, the nose mask cannot protect you. So that's the question. And so, yes, it's important that you practice what we've been told. Social distancing, don't touch your face. And most importantly, don't cough into your hands at all. Keep your hands sanitized and washed regularly. Chidiak is on the line from Southla. Chidiak, so are you satisfied? What's your experience? Are you satisfied with the responses of Mr. Saba and the Transport Minister? What do you think should be done?
You see, transport business is driven by profits. So how do I go and buy fuel, fill my tank, carry people to drive and loss? That's the question. Your car needs maintenance, you need to pay your staff, and then you reduce the passenger intake. How then can the commercial driver continue his business? That is where the problem is. What are we doing to cushion the people? Without that, all these laws will not hold. Thank you.
Chidiak, thanks for calling. Lawal is on the line from Bupe. Good morning, Lawal. Lawal, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Beautiful. Yes, Lawal, so what's your experience? Are you satisfied with Mr. Saba's response and that's to the Transport Minister? And what should be done?
Yeah, I think so far so good. But it looks as if as a country we've delayed with the education. But so far so good. But after the time we're hearing the whole issues in China and areas like Italy, Iran, and so on, we should have started with the education. That was the right time to do the education. Now, my other problem is that everything is now being emphasized. Our emphasis is just on the sanitizers. Sanitizers are not a panacea. Because these, if you look at it, everybody wants to just grab a sanitizer. So we should, apart from the distancing and then the other means of staying away from the virus, we should not just be preaching the sanitizers. I think the distancing and then the kind of space and trying to self-quarantine ourselves is the best way. Honestly, corona is real. We just have to be serious. It seems it is gradually increasing. It's increasing. We don't have to play about this at all. We don't just have to play about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lawal from Bupe. Let me go to Tema and speak to Makoni. Makoni, thanks for joining us. So we want to know what your experience has been, whether or not you are satisfied with the responses of Mr. Saba and the Transport Minister. And most importantly, what should be done?
Daniel, I know you are not a physician or doctor, but my problem is, they say we should wash our hands shouldn't touch our mouth and nose. But my problem is, how about the food that we eat? We used to buy food in the roadside, in the market, and the food is not every food that you can wash. Something like granite that is tight. You just buy it and put it in your mouth. What about the food that we are buying in market, in the roadside?
Makoni, it's an interesting problem you raise here, but coronavirus is basically it's spread basically when droplets come from your nose and your mouth onto what you touch and what goes into your mouth. So if you're afraid that the groundnut you're buying has droplets from someone's nose and mouth, I think there's a bigger problem than just coronavirus. So let's keep that in mind. Yao is on the line from Accra. Good morning, Yao.
Hello, good morning. How are you doing?
I am blessed. Yao, how are you doing?
Very well. Okay, so I want to contribute to the program. Can I go ahead?
Yes. We want to know what your experience is, if you are satisfied with the responses of Mr. Saba and the Transport Minister, and what should be done.
Okay, I think sometimes, it's rather unfortunate, but we who are educated, we who are literate, we who have gone to school, and are supposed to be giving solutions to problems in the society rather tend to be the problem. So far, I haven't heard any word from your panelists giving us solutions, right? Now, look at the value chain. You are asking somebody to reduce the number of people who are in their car. You are asking the drivers to reduce the number of people who are in their car. Have you asked yourself, for the same mandate as the president has, to say that, okay, drivers should reduce numbers from 4 to 3, the same president can also go ahead to say that, look, all spare parts prices should be reduced at a percentage to be able to absorb that car owner whom you are denying that extra money from. These are solutions. You ask car owners to accept to reduce their the money they give their drivers, forgetting that the car owner would go to Abosokan, would go to Magazine, would go to wherever to go and buy spare parts at the same price. Are you getting it? So when we are thinking, let's do our thinking logically. Let's spend time to do critical thinking. And and go for end-to-end thinking.
Yeah, thank you. Right. Yeah, thank you very much for calling. Ajiman Joseph is on the line from Tema. Good morning, Ajiman Joseph.
Good morning,
By grace, let's hear you.
In fact, this corona is taking a toll on us, and it is hurting a lot of businesses, including this transport issue. I think your guest, the GPICU boss, is very critical, very careful, answering questions and giving submissions. The issue is that owners are even having problems making profit already. And my issue is, I believe the virus will be in the person for about 14 days before it shows. And even in the vehicle, if somebody shouts, "Driver, our light here," and the air coming from the mouth not going to spread through the vehicle. So can the distance be an issue? If somebody touches the seat, is it not going to be disturbing the person touching the seat? And when the vehicle has been disinfected, for how many minutes does it, stay before if somebody touches, it doesn't go well? So I think it's very, very, very difficult because for the distance, how many meter distance that is appropriate for us to check in the buses? So, Mr. Daniel, it is going to be very difficult.
Thanks for calling, Joe. Peter T is on the line from Sukura. Good morning, Peter T.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. How is it?
Blessed. Let's hear you.
Yeah, Mr. Saba, good morning.
Morning to you.
Yeah. My problem is that having allowed even passengers going through the processes of sanitizing, the car and then the passengers, there's one side that we must also look at. The passengers boarding the car also have their long queue, and these are the same people who enter the car. So how do we deal with that? Do you see? So there are so many issues that we need to consider. Once we say we are doing it, then we have to start from the source and climb, so that when we are solving it, we don't leave anybody in the middle. My point number 2 is also about the reduction of passengers in the car, as being said by the authorities. It's going to cause a problem because I learned that the fact that the number of the gathering is reduced to 10 or whatever size, it doesn't mean that if somebody is contracted with the disease, the next person will not be affected. But I believe that it is about the numerical value. We look at it that even any of them that contract the disease can be identified. I think that is why the reduction of the number. So we have to look at it very holistically. So that when we are solving it, we know we are solving it once and for all. Because looking at the Western world, what is happening today, especially Italy and then the rest, Germany and then the rest of the continent, we need also to take, some examples from there. The way they are putting up the, precautionary measures, and then especially China, where the whole thing started. So, very much.
Thank you very much, Peter T. You called from Sukura. Let's go to Spintex now. Reverend George is on the line. Good morning, Reverend.
Good morning, Daniel. I want to pick it from this point. I supported the last but 2 caller talking about the cost involved in the transport business. Why don't we switch this way? We had petrol prices reduced for about 30%, but the reduction that was affected by our bonds in Ghana is just 5%. Why don't we enforce that the prices should be reduced by compelling the transport owners and then to reduce the number of passengers and also reduce the sales that drivers make for them? I think when we take it from this point, it will be well for all of us rather than enforcing that they reduce the number of passengers, by which cause they are also increasing their cost. So I think if we look at this point, it will help all of us. So let's tweak the reduction of the petrol prices rather.
Thank you very much, Reverend George from Spintex. Kojo from Spintex is our final caller. Good morning, Kojo.
Good morning. How are you doing, Daniel?
I am blessed. Kojo, let's hear you.
Okay.
I just want to bring our minds to one issue that we are all overlooking. I think that we have to, at this point, put in enforcement. The only way we can enforce if there is remedy for those who are losing livelihoods, losing mere survival. In Ghana, a lot of the masses are in the informal sector. Our brothers and our sisters and our mothers and our friends who are in the informal sector are not going to be able to work from home, socially distanced, like the way we've read and seen it being done out there. This is Ghana, and we have to apply the tactics that will make things work here. If you tell a trotro driver to reduce the capacity of their truck or their car from, like, say, 15 to 10 to be able to socially distance, they are going to lose revenue. What you must ask yourself is, what is going to make up for this revenue loss? If a taxi driver is supposed to make sales of 100 seats, whether there is coronavirus or not, his master is still going to request for the 100 seats to be paid at the end of the day. If he is going to reduce the number of people that he takes to be able to make up the 100 sales a day, he's going to lose revenue. What is going to make up for the loss in revenue? Those are the conversations that we should be having right now. If there is a stopgap measure to take care of the revenue loss that these drivers are going to incur in order to implement the social distancing policy that we are talking about, somebody has to take care of it. If nobody is taking care of it, most people are all about survival. At this point, people are thinking of their survival. People are not thinking of how deadly this virus is, because he has not really plagued our country like others. People still see it as a very, very distant disease that's so far away. So we need to have conversation about how we are going to compensate people to be able to implement this social distancing policy very well. Otherwise, it will just be mere rhetoric. And
Kojo, thank you so much for your comments there. People thinking more of survival. Thanks a lot. It's 18 minutes to the top of the hour, 10 a.m. It's time for us to wrap up. Let me take final comments, a minute each, I believe, from all of my guests here. I see Kojo copiously taking notes. I want you to go first, Kojo. Keep it within a minute.
Oh, gosh. Okay, look, we're talking about social distancing, and it comes at a cost. I think the last caller is absolutely right, that at this point, the conversation, like I said, should start with the concept of sacrifice. First, let's get everybody to understand that this is going to entail sacrifice on all fronts. We're not just trotro drivers, not just taxi drivers, not just business operators. You and I are going to have to bear a certain cost in order to ensure that we don't kill our citizens and spread this disease, for it to mutate, get stronger, and become something that is even harder to deal with than it is today. People with better, stronger economies than ours are suffering, grappling with it. We need to recognize that our safest bet is to take the toughest action now, so that we will be in a better position tomorrow.
Okay.
So in terms of social distancing, the cost must be borne by all, including government. So the last caller who raises the point of whether indeed government should start looking at some way of compensating those who will be hardest hit, that should be part of the conversation from now.
Thanks, Kojo. And Nana?
Well, I think sacrificing at this time is the name of the game. And I think if we put Kwawu Easter on hold, if we put funerals on hold, churches have been put on hold, then certainly there could be some changes within the transport sector. Definitely, there must be. I mean, if all these things that we thought we could not live without have now been literally put on hold, then certainly the transport sector should also review. And I say not review not only for coronavirus, but for safety after coronavirus. They should look at what they're doing.
Thank you very much, Nana and Robert. Mr. Sabai.
For now, we've not considered, social distance within our vehicles for the fact that, we are likely to lose revenue. And not until, government comes in, maybe to pushing us, the revenue that we'll be losing, it will be difficult for us to do so. In any case, I think when this discussion goes on, within the public, I think we can find solution to this. Whatever solution that comes, we'll comply.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robert Saba, for joining us here, National Vice Chair of the GPRTU. We'll just take a few messages. We'll be right back. There's still a lot more coming on the Super Morning Show.
In a world